Hello, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Mind Debate 16.0. Together with me from the Mindmakers team are Pramod, Kumar, Buravalli, and Sunanda, Vashisht. And we're very pleased to introduce our guest for today, senior journalist and columnist Kanchan Gupta, who has been in the field for many. I mean, he's very experienced and has been writing on a variety of issues. He writes weekly columns in various media portals, which includes a very highly popular column called Coffee Break that he writes on Pioneer newspaper that he was on the editorial team of as well. Sunanda always told me when he talked about Kanchanda that he long started writing about India-Israel issues before it was considered fashionable to do so, and had very interesting insights in it. I always look forward to reading Kanchanda's columns. So together we're going to be talking about the India-Israel relationship, Modi's Israel visit, and what to make out of it, and some current affairs issues as well. So Kanchanda, welcome to the debate.
Thank you.
So I would like to kick things off. So how significant? I mean, of course, this is the first visit in 70 years, and no policy has been, nowhere have we seen such a big tectonic shift when it comes to foreign policy. Have we seen with Israel in this government? So how do you view this visit, and how big of a change has it been in the last 2 or 3 years?
Well, to be honest, this government has been consistent with breaking with the past as far as foreign policy is concerned. And we have seen changes happening across the board. So in a manner of speaking, we are free of the baggage of NAM, and we have finally given up on the ghost of non-alignment. So it's only natural that the foreign policy initiatives of the government should have reached a point where the first Indian Prime Minister actually visits Israel, and not only visits Israel, but it's a dehyphenated relationship we are looking at now. We no longer hyphenate the Palestinian issue with our relations with Israel, and the two are basically standalone relationships.
No, absolutely. And then we have moved very, very far away from the Nehruvian doctrine. I mean, non-aligned movement was essentially Nehruvian doctrine, I guess, of the 60s and 70s. So it's an interesting step.
Kanchanda, one question that I always have had the past 3 years, after having seen the personality that Prime Minister Modi brings to the fore with his own, I guess, sense of personalizing the foreign policy. How do you have policy wongs, again, neutral policy wongs, define what NAMO is trying to achieve? Is there a policy document that can be written that can be used as a process, as a boiler template, or no? Is this personality driven?
No, I mean, the boiler template we had was the Nehruvian consensus. And that is something which has been around ever since Prime Minister Nehru, even before he became Prime Minister of India. He was sort of trying to determine India's foreign policy positions. And don't forget that exactly 100 years ago, it was Prime Minister Nehru, I mean, he was not a Prime Minister then, who had insisted that the Congress must oppose the Balfour Declaration, which was the basis of the creation of Israel. So the boilerplate template that you talk about was the Nehruvian consensus, and which has been described as running commentary on morality. So India kept on taking moral positions, and I think I have written recently somewhere that for Nehru, it was not the national interest which was of paramount importance, but it was the interest of promoting his idea of where India stood in the Committee of Nations. So it was his own personal beliefs which took precedence over the national interest. And that essentially created a host of problems for India in the subsequent years.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I always joke with Sunanda, this was probably not Nehruvian consensus, but Nehruvian utopia that led India to where it is right now.
It was delusion for sure. Dada, I have a question for you, and it's a more nuts and bolts question. You are amongst the few that I know, very few actually, who have been engaged with Israel for a long time. As a commentator, as a writer, you've been studying Israel. You have given at least me a lot of sense about Israel when it was very difficult to find any literature around it. And an Indian journalist perspective on Israel is what I got from you. Many years ago, as I said, when it was not fashionable to do so. You were in Israel when Prime Minister Modi went. Give us a sense on the street. How was it? Because I know that Indian press went completely, they recorded every second, every minute of it. Israeli press did too. They were very upbeat about the visit. Give us a sense what was happening on the road. What did the ordinary Israelis feel? Were they upbeat about this visit by Prime Minister Modi? Because we keep talking about the civilizational connect. We keep talking about how Israel and India goes a long way back. But how was it on the road? How was it on the street?
Dada, you're on mute, I think.
Dada, you're on mute. You need to. You're on mute, Dada. Hang on. We can't hear you. The voice went away. We can see you, but we can't hear you.
Can you plug out the headphones and plug them back in, Dada, and see? No, I can't hear the voice at all.
No.
Let's try with the speaker and see if that works, Dada. Sunanda, can you call Dada and tell him that if this doesn't work, he can just like log back in or something, close the Hangout and log back in, and sometimes that works. Something.
Yeah. I don't think if he can answer, if he can hear me. Dada, take out the, let me text him. Oh, there he is. He'll come back again.
That's okay. I'll edit this part.
You will be able to?
Oh, so okay.
Oh, it was going very well. What happened?
I have no idea. Absolutely no idea. Pramod, you're also on mute.
No, internet connections in India go up and down. So Google Hangout is not the best way to do these things.
No, but we could see him. We could hear him.
There, he's on again.
Hello? I think that you're on mute again.
Did it work? Aadit, you can unmute him.
No, I can't. He has to unmute it there. Then you might have to unmute yourself there at the top. On the top, there is an option of right next to the person. There is a mute option. You're
right at the top.
It says mute microphone, or you can just click on there
to unmute it.
Just call na, Sunanda. Phone karna.
Yeah, I'm trying.
What are you going to use to edit this?
YouTube. YouTube gets me to trim it.
हाँ, उसी में segment You can go back. Yeah, good. But the video is so clear. We can see Kanchan very well.
I don't know what happened.
Call kar bhai, Sunanda.
कर रही हूँ. My phone is outside. Remember here 99100.
Kanchan, can you unmute yourself by clicking on the top? There is an icon on the top, right up top.
Just hit redial.
No, because my phone was outside. I have to dial from my phone, the cell phone now.
Jaldi kar. I don't want him to lose him.
I know. I'm trying.
अच्छा एक ग्राउंड रूल लगाते हैं.
एक सेकंड.
991007899.
Kanchan, can you hear us? I don't know how to unmute him. He has to unmute himself.
I know. 3 zeros.
Kanchan, if you can hear us, there is this at the top, at the top of the screen, there is this unmute button right next to the person button.
There, his phone is ringing now. Huh, Dada, there is, you've muted yourself. You have to unmute yourself. If you go on the picture where your picture is, just on the top, you will see 4 icons, one of the microphone, one of the camera, and then a couple of other, so that microphone, this thing, just click on it. It says, what does it say?
Microphone problem.
There's a microphone problem, yeah, because we could hear you and then suddenly you went away. I mean, we can see you. We can see you very clearly. So how about you take off your microphones and just use the speaker of the computer?
Okay.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's just use the speaker because these laptops have good speakers these days. So just take off your microphone completely. Yeah, take off your microphone completely. Unplug it from your device.
And unmute himself. Unmute yourself.
No, we can do it without the microphone also. Sometimes it happens. Can you take it out? Can you plug it out from the computer?
No, tell him to unmute himself at the top.
Okay, now can you unmute yourself again?
At the top, देखो वो जो person का icon है ना उसके बाद ही है unmute.
Yeah.
Hangout can't use the selected microphone without a working microphone.
It is telling him, Aadit, that you can't use the microphone without some selective microphone, without a working microphone. That's strange. We just were there.
Can he do one thing? If he can just restart.
Log out and log back in.
No, maybe let's try that. Log out and log back in. Let's try that.
Restart your computer, Sunanda. Restart.
So now he's doing that.
No, restart, not log out. Restart the computer.
Dada, can you restart the computer then in that case?
Do I do that?
Yeah, let's restart the computer and let's see. Because you were on, everything was perfect. I don't know what happened. Yeah. Aadit, I would suggest we have hardly begun. What we can do is we can start the Hangout again.
We can do that.
Microphone not working?
Just restart the computer and that would work.
Should he try with my
iPad? Should he try with his iPad?
Usme he'll have to use the app, try the app.
Okay, Google. Do you have the app in that? Google Hangout app in your iPad?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. Let's try this. Just let's take it out. Is it still saying after you restart it, it's still saying that?
No, he hasn't restarted yet, Sunanda.
Yeah. Let's wait for you to restart.
Restart his computer completely.
Let's wait for you to restart your computer completely. Yeah. Yes, you can, but you have to have a app
if
on
he
it.
has a Google Hangout. No. Actually, if he can just join in, if he can just log in through regular, मुझे पता नहीं है Google Hangouts करने देगा या नहीं app के बिना. Pramod, can you log in without an app?
Yeah, we can do it on the iPad. Do you want to try clicking on that link and let's see if that works?
Yeah, let's try on his iPad while this PC is getting.
You can do it on the iPhone also, except we will see a very small picture of you. Let's see. Let's try the iPad. That is so strange.
पर ये ऐसा कभी हुआ नहीं. दत्ता जी के साथ भी किया. It didn't have a problem like this.
इंडिया में थोड़ा गड़बड़ हो जाता है.
No, I don't think it's something to do with India. It's just कुछ. No, and we don't need to restart the Hangout, Sunanda.
क्यों?
I can trim the video.
Yeah, he can trim it, Sunanda ji. This
Okay.
is good. This is good.
Restart. No, we can trim it. फिर अगर हमारे you keep talking to Kanchan, okay, Sunanda?
Yeah, I'm talking to him. I'm on the phone with him.
Okay.
Oh, I think I got disconnected from the phone. I'll try again in a minute.
If he went from his iPhone, then probably that's why.
Why don't you just pass on the phone to Aadit? Aadit will give him a call and guide him through.
नहीं रहने दो ना.
नहीं, वो भी ठीक है.
ठीक है. फिर भी तेरा.
Pankaj, I just received Pankaj Jain's message saying, when can I join the podcast?
Who?
Pankaj Jain. Oh, this would be a bummer, guys, if this doesn't happen.
Well, I hope it does, but I mean, it's beyond our control. क्या करें यार? I hope we can join.
Should I try calling him again?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay. I'm calling him again. He's not answering the phone. Yeah, Dada.
Yeah. I just switched on my iPad.
Okay.
क्या हुआ, Sunanda?
He's just switched on his iPad.
Okay. We're not trying from laptop?
It doesn't seem that the microphones are working on the laptop. Which is so strange because everything was perfect.
ठीक है, no problem.
I'm just glad this is not live. Okay, I'm on the line, so let's see.
This again needs to bloody app, yeah.
It needs the app?
Yeah.
Oh, the app is it won't let you get in without the app. Okay, yeah, try it from the laptop once again.
मैं बोल रहा हूँ ना ऐप के बिगर नहीं जाने देता वो.
Fully sorry about.
No, 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 don't be sorry, Dada. It's not your fault. We're trying.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm putting the phone down.
I can hear you actually. Yes.
Okay. Okay. I just disconnected the phone, Dada.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you now.
Perfect, Dada.
Perfect. Yay! You're back. We're back in business. I wonder what happened.
There is a joke we have here that there is no Desi event complete without a good technical glitch.
No, and Dada is in UP, so I would have blamed.
No, we keep on having intermittent power cuts. So let's get going so that we don't.
Okay,
drop
okay,
off
let's get
again.
going.
Okay. So where were we?
I was just asking you, Dada,
So
about
we were
the
talking
street,
about-
and we'll be able to edit it. I was asking you about the street. Well, hold on. Okay.
Dada,
Yeah.
saying something. Yes, go on. Yes. Kanchan?
Yeah. So I just wanted to give you a brief background. You see, why was I interested in Israel? Because there has to be a certain amount of affinity between two democracies. You see, if you look at the map from North Africa down to India, there is only one country which can claim to be a true democracy. It's an open society, it's a plural society. That is one part of it. Second is that it is a civilizational state. Israel is not a Westphalian state. Most of Middle Westphalian states. And India too is a civilizational state. Extent there is a commonality between the two countries. Now, coming to the visit, the Prime Minister's visit, everybody in Israel was talking about Prime Minister Modi. The shopkeepers were talking about it, the taxi drivers were talking about it, officers were talking about it, the police were talking about it. And there's a large security presence in that country. So if you just if you were to just walk up to one of the soldiers and tell him that, so do you know that the Prime Minister of India is here? And he would not only know that, he would also know about that the Prime Minister's name is Narendra Modi. And more interestingly, many of them knew about what all Modi has been doing in India. I would just like to recount a brief anecdote. A 63-year-old Jew who was regaling me with stories about his childhood when they would watch Raj Kapoor films. I really don't know how they got to watch Raj Kapoor films, because India had no official exchange or relations with Israel those days. And then he burst into Ichak Dana, Pichak Dana, and he went on and on and on. Now, such anecdotes, of course, you get to hear in every country that you visit, especially about Raj Kapoor.
Yeah.
But more interestingly, what he told me was that he wished a demonetization in Israel. So here is somebody who, in Israel who has absolutely no connection with official, with the government of Israel or with official work of Israel. He's a private citizen, and he knows about the Prime Minister of India, and he knows about one of the most important measures taken by the Prime Minister, which was an internal financial measure, that is demonetization. It had nothing to do with external policy or foreign affairs, but he was fully aware of it. And he said that he wished that the government of Israel had something like that to clean up the dirty money in Israel. So that is the kind of awareness that exists over there. Also, don't forget that every year, Israel is a small country. 40,000 is not a very big number, but Israel is a small country, and every year we have 40,000 Israelis visiting India.
Wow.
Every Israeli boy or girl who goes to the army for mandatory service, after their 2 years, they come to India for a year just to unwind, just to get back to the real world. And they carry back a whole lot of memories with them. They carry back food habits with them. They carry back cultural ideas with them. We suppose nobody took note of it. Among the top 10 summer hits in Israel this year is a number called Indian Sitar. So it is basically jazzed up fusion sitar music, which is among the top 10 chart busters in Israel this summer. So that it's a different kind of relationship, and it's a relationship that can only grow. It can never go down.
Yeah.
Interesting, very interesting. No, and on a lighter note, it's good that Kanchanda got a Raj Kapoor anecdote about people in Israel, because we've only heard of those about people in Russia. So, so in more ways than one, that is the sign of things. But anyways, Pramod, you had a point.
I want to go back to a little bit of fundamental thought. A couple of years ago, I was trying to tread a path of analyzing Brahma Sutras, and there is very few seminal work that has been done on comparison and contrasting, not finding similarities, but kind of the study of the Kabbalistic elements within Judaism to the Advaita Vedanta. Did you hear when you were in Israel, or at least come across some sort of discussions, debates, or some sort of an understanding, deeper understanding between the non-dualistic Judaism part with the Advaita Vedantic thought? Did you come across discussions like that?
No, there are rabbis in Israel who are involved with interfaith dialogue with Hindu spiritual leaders in India. But you have to keep in mind that that many Israelis today are not what they call themselves as non-religious Jews. So they see themselves as cultural Jews, not as religious Jews. Religion is not openly talked about in Israel, largely left to the Orthodox and the ultra-Orthodox Jews to take care of the faith part of it. most Israelis wouldn't really talk about religion and faith openly, and especially with foreigners, definitely not.
Okay.
So I have no experience of it, but yes, rabbis who are involved with interfaith dialogue, and it's an ongoing process.
Okay.
Interesting.
Dada, give me a sense of how we came here since P.V. Narasimha Rao finally lifted the veil of secrecy, and then under Atal Bihari Vajpayee, we welcomed Ariel Sharon to India, and then Jaswant Singh, and then Deputy Prime Minister L.K. Advani went to Israel. That was the top leaders going at that time, but it was not a prime ministerial visit. That was left to Narendra Modi to do. But give us a sense, that was Narendra Modi's PMO running a relay race, and did it build up on that, or it was something that came out of the blue that they said, no, we have to move it to the next, from the first level to another 100th level right away? Because under UPA, we saw complete lull in Indo-Israel relationships.
It's ironical. If you go back to the first address by the president, the UPA came to power in 2004. In the presidential speech to the to a joint session of parliament, which is the mandatory process of starting a new government, the speech actually mentions the UPA's determination to improve relations with Israel. The point where they begin from, and subsequently over the next 10 years, the whole thing sort of dissipates and disappears. And the lowest point, of course, was when we went to the UN Security Council after 26/11. We did not, and it was a considered decision not to mention that Nariman House, also known as Chabad House, was attacked, and that Jews were killed in that attack, and that it was essentially an attack that was directed at people of several faiths, and that Nariman House was specifically targeted. So we did not do that, and it was a very, very shameful chapter. The other point where we went really way out was when we went off the official position on Israel and Palestine. The position has been steady for years and for decades that India believes in a two-state solution, that both the states should live in secure borders and in harmony and peace. And we made no mention whatsoever of East Jerusalem.
Yeah.
But halfway through UPA 2, I think it was during UPA 2, that they suddenly changed that line, and they brought in East Jerusalem in that in the reference we had of Israel and Palestine as far as our policy is concerned. So these changes happened, and they were not very happy changes. Subsequently, after Mr. Modi came, he signaled that there would be a tectonic shift, that it would not be business as usual. People did not, at least the bureaucrats, I think, did not take him seriously. We went ahead and voted against Israel within days of Mr. Modi coming to power, and there were fireworks in Delhi.
Yes.
After that, and for the last 3 years, Mr. Modi has very carefully worked on this visit. He has dehyphenated Israel and Palestine as far as India is concerned. These relationships. He has dehyphenated India's relationship with the Arabs and Israel. One is no longer linked to the other. So we have made it very clear to the Arabs that our relationship with you is independent of our relationship with Israel. And we have made it very clear to Israel that our relationship with you is independent of our relationship with the Arabs. And more than Arabs, of course, our relationship with Israel, with Iran. Now, India-Iran relationship remains a bothersome bit in the context of India-Israel relations, but I guess matured countries deal with it in a matured manner.
Yeah, and it's a tragedy that we have thought that our relationships with Israel who has supported us in probably all wars since we've fought, would be determined by our relationship with like Arab nations who have never supported us in anything we did against Pakistan. And so that was the
no, but I hate to talk about the independence of the relationship that India can maintain. It's just that the hypocrisies of the past, the pseudo assumptions of the past have been set aside. One comment, and I wish Kanchanda corrects me here, that the United States maintains relationships, great relationships, commercial, business, and otherwise, with both Israel and the Saudis. In fact, the Saudis and the Israelis actually cooperate in many areas which they don't talk about in the open. There have been in the past technical help also provided by the Israelis to the Saudis, again under the table. So why has India not done that is one question. And why can't India continue to have equal and non-hyphenated relationships with both the civilizations is one of my questions. The premise that India somehow the Indian Muslims will not like India to be much more friendlier to an Israel is what was the assumption, the bad assumption that has been set aside. Right, hasn't Israel cooperated with Saudi too in the past? The Saudis?
No, okay. Now, there are 3 or 4 elements to what you said. Number one, there was the burden of India's alliances of the past. Nehru, Nasser, Tito, they forged an alliance which later became movement. So it was a huge burden. And much of the non-aligned movement's opposition to Israel was really posturing. Yugoslavia doesn't exist anymore, so we don't need to get into that zone. But even Egypt has a peace agreement with Israel. They actively collaborate. They are now in a security collaboration to fight the Islamic State and the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. So it is a working relationship. It is a relationship which is based on they do a lot of business. Now look at the Gulf states. I mean, look at Israel and Saudi Arabia. There is, as you rightly said, that there is a lot of things happening which we don't get to know, which we don't get to see, or which we don't get to hear. But there is a lot of active collaboration between Saudi Arabia and Israel. Now, the dimension over there changes because Saudi Arabia is basically hostile to Iran. Iran is hostile to Israel. And so it becomes my enemy's enemy is my friend kind of a situation. Look at the other Gulf states. In the past, Israel has been allowed access, and I put access in quote unquote, to send in agents to do targeted assassinations in Dubai. So that is the kind of association that exists. Now, lastly, let me also make a point over here. Contrary to what the Arabs want us to believe, and contrary to what the Muslims of India believe, or the Muslims of India would want people of India to believe, I don't think the Arabs have a very, very high regard or love or affection for Palestinians as a people. It has always been an issue of convenience for the Arab palace. You keep on talking about Israel and the occupation of Palestine, so you keep the attention of the Arab street diverted from problems within home. So that is how it has actually played out in the Arab world.
Correct.
And those things are now becoming a bit. I mean, they don't sort of yield the kind of return they used to yield earlier. So the Arabs are also now getting more pragmatic. They are now getting more realistic. The oil economy is no longer what it used to be. So the whole place, all of Middle East is in a flux. The Westphalian state is collapsing. We don't have, you really don't know what Middle East looks like in reality, because India is out there bursting into pieces. Iraq is out there bursting into pieces. Right now, we have the Gulf states ganging up against Qatar, and Iran is trying to get into the act. So it's all a mess. And in this kind of a situation, Israel needs the support of a big country like India. And Israel needs a very active collaborative relationship with a big country like India, because sadly, and I sort of stress on the word sadly, America is on. America is totally sort of washed its hands of Middle East. It's a country that is increasingly pulling out of Middle Eastern affairs. It is now becoming increasingly more insular, and the American presence in the Middle East, which was a big balancing factor, just doesn't obtain anymore. So in this situation for Israel, it makes sense to look at India, to look at China. And let me tell you, Israel also has an excellent relationship going with China. But they don't sort of conflate their relationship with China with their relationship with India. So at both ends, there's a lot of dehyphenation happening. And as I said, matured countries deal with bilateral relations on a standalone basis, not in the multilateral mode.
It's interesting, and Sunanda, just one point, and it's on, I was actually watching a couple of debates on international channels on this, and one of them happened to be an Al Jazeera debate and others. And some commentator actually said, "What about Israel's relationship with Pakistan?" So then a journalist from Israel was like, "It doesn't exist, and if it exists on such a small level, that it shouldn't bother us." So what Kanchan is saying, that the dehyphenation, that Israel has long dehyphenated India and Pakistan, is like, I don't know why there are some people in the West still intent on hyphenating India and Pakistan when we talk about India's relationship with any other country.
I think Narendra Modi has successfully, tried to get United States at least to dehyphenate India and Pakistan. We still have to see how Trump White House behaves, but as of in Obama White House, we were able to successfully dehyphenate India and Pakistan. My question to Dada is, and I suppose Aadit will want to move on after that. We do know, and a lot of commentators, including you, have talked about what India would like from Israel. We would like a lot of technology transfer. We would like, collaboration on a lot of issues. And you did refer to it a little bit in your previous answer, what Israel needs from India, from a big country like India. Israel would like to see it as its friend. But in tangible terms, what would Israel like from India?
No, see, Israel, of course, would like a relationship which is essentially, it's an economic relationship. But in terms of building up that economic relationship, because what they have to offer to India and what India can acquire from Israel is largely related to India's strategic interests. So if we look at the 7 agreements which were signed on this visit by Prime Minister Modi, you will find that 3 of the agreements are on space collaboration on space exploration, space technology. Now, I am not going to elaborate on the nature of the technology that we are looking at, but if we just look at the technology for civilian purposes, one is for the atomic clock. Now, a country needs an atomic clock.
Yeah.
for various reasons. The US would need it to maintain its multiple time zones. India doesn't have multiple time zones. So we can only assume why that atomic clock and the precision time it offers is important to us. The second is one of the other agreements, of the three agreements, deals with data transfer between satellites. So we are looking at two satellites or multiple satellites exchanging data without any download and upload happening, and which means it's a real-time data transfer, data analysis, and action on the basis of that analysis. This is huge. The third one essentially is about we are now moving into launching multiple satellites, nanosatellites, and we need a particular amount of propulsion, particular nature of propulsion technology, and that technology will now come from Israel. So basically, what is going to happen is that India and Israel will be using satellite technology for both civilian and strategic purposes. Now, the strategic purposes are best not discussed, because even if we talk about it, it will be right. Because very loosely speaking, all of it is dual-use technology.
No, absolutely. And Sunanda, just to add to this, not just on the defense side, you have also the cooperation on agrarian side. I think me and Pramod were talking about water conservatism and land reclamation, which Israel is heavily involved in. So Pramod, if
also your answer gives credence to the rumor that you are the only deep state journalist that India has ever had.
Okay, moving on from that.
No, but Sunanda, just half a second.
Yes, please go ahead.
We tend to think that strategic thinking is only about guns and bullets and bombs and missiles, but it is not really so. India desperately needs technology for water management, for water conservation, and for water recycling. We need it because we are already a water-stressed country. And then at the next stage, if we don't act now, the next stage will be that we are a water deficient country. This despite the rains we have, this despite the monsoons we have, the rivers.
Because we don't have the management.
It's not managed properly. We do not have the technology to manage it. We do not have the technology to use it better, and we do not have the technology to recycle water. Now, all this is important, and this is really, really important, because many people think, and rightly so, that wars of the future will be fought not for land but for water.
Right.
And so we are basically looking ahead, and I think we are doing the right thing by collaborating with Israel, which has really fabulous state-of-the-art technology on water. And I wish if it is applied in our country, we will see the benefits percolate down to millions and millions of people.
We just had a piece.
I'm just about to say, Pramod.
Adit, go ahead, Adit. Go ahead.
No, so it's interesting that you mentioned about water technology, Kanchan, because we just had a piece on Mind Makers just about this. I think Gal Water, that was the
Gal Mobile,
Gal Mobile, and Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Netanyahu were at the Gal Mobile. They observed and kind of looked into what that vehicle would do and how it would improve the water quality. So it's interesting that
I was going to ask a little tricky question to Dada. Dada, you gave us a sense of what the how the Israeli state reacted to the Prime Minister Modi's visit. I know that you are not part of the Lutyens crowd, but you keep an eye on them. You're not too far away from the Lutyens in Delhi, even though you managed to be out in Uttar Pradesh. I want you to give me a sense of the shock and awe amongst the crowd or the so-called establishment, or what has been the establishment, about the kind of reception Prime Minister Modi got there and the kind of photo ops that we saw. We have never seen anything like that with Israel or any other country. Mr. Modi is known to give hugs and everything, but this was at a completely different level. I mean, the beach outing and all those outings, they were at the home of Benjamin Netanyahu. What was the reaction amongst the people that you know very well?
See, the coverage which you saw in Indian media was largely dictated by the popular interest in the visit. Popular interest in the visit was huge. I mean, it was immeasurably huge. Because the average Indian sees Israel with a great degree of admiration.
Yes.
Long-distance admiration always creates its own ideas of a country, of a people. And to see their own prime minister visit that country, it's a historic visit. It's a visit that comes on the 50th anniversary of the 1967 war. It's a visit that comes on the 100th anniversary of the Balfour Declaration. And it's a visit that actually comes at a time when India is looking confident. India is being seen as a confident rising power. So all these factors sort of combine to create a whole degree of interest. So media had no other option but to pander to that interest. If they didn't, they would have lost TRP. Or they would have lost readers. So that is clear. Now the second part is how does the establishment react? Let me tell you that the establishment, to sort of internalize the fact that the government of India has actually dehyphenated the Palestinian issue and Israel. This dehyphenation, I don't think it has sort of percolated to the level which it should to realize the shift taken place with this visit. It will take time. It's just like in Washington, D.C., the dehyphenation which you mentioned that happened actually began happening during the second Clinton presidency. It sort of gained ground during the Bush presidency. And then, of course, during the last few years, we have seen a very structured separation of U.S. relations with Pakistan and U.S. relations with India.
Interesting.
During the Obama years.
Absolutely.
But that is at the top level. But if you look at the structured establishment in Washington, D.C., I think they are still not yet used to the idea of dehyphenating India and Pakistan. Most bureaucrats still sneakily try to link one to the other. If you look at the fine print of many of the statements, you'll find that kind of suggestive linking happening. So it takes time, and it will take time in India also for this idea to sink.
And what you said actually earlier, and with that, I'm going to move on to the last part of the debate about what the Indian bureaucracy did when they voted against Israel in the early part of the Modi administration. That they did not probably foresee the change that was going to happen, and they were, going by years and years of the anti-Israel, pro-Palestine, or hyphenating Israel-Palestine doctrine, so to speak. So, Pramod, and then we have to move on to the last question.
One observation, Kanchanda, and you might be very gleefully happy after hearing this, is I was in touch, and I am continuing to be in touch with a gentleman who heads General Atomics. And if there are two low-hanging fruits that the Indian military establishment wanted from the United States back in the Obama later years, was the aircraft carrier technology, the steam catapult technology, and the Predator drones, both of which are manufactured by this company in California. So there was a visit by President Modi in which the hope by the Indian security establishment was, and there was this backroom discussions happening to acquire those technologies, which were in principle agreed upon, but when two very wily businessmen and one being a wily busy man, Narendra Modi, they talk to each other. There is like Adan Pradan, what do I give, what do I get, that sort of a thing at a very mature level, and that did not happen. And I was really flabbergasted that the United States has this on the table, but it did not, have an agreement on at least the Predator drones. Immediately, Modi lands in Israel and gets the Heron, the armed drone aircraft, which are actually on par with Predators. And the buzz in the US strategic community was lamenting that they couldn't close the deal with a resurgent India. So the dehyphenation has now led to compulsions of the economic imperative to do more and more business with India. So that I have seen in the past 17 years living here to my glee, and pleases me every day when I see the desperation in the US security community to have something better and bigger going with India, which has never happened before in the past. Whether it is because of Modi or otherwise, the day and times we live in has led to a sea change in the American policy makers' thought process, which is the deep state forcing the US president to make deals with India at a very strategic level. Had never happened before.
A very quick comment on this. You see, essentially, there is a difference. When you are doing business with America for defense acquisition, you need multiple clearances. You need clearances by various departments. You need congressional approval. You need presidential approval. So it gets tied up with various other things, and that is not always very helpful. Now, the US did offer drones. Those drones were essentially for surveillance purposes. That's perfectly okay. I mean, as far as the US is concerned, it is offering us what it presumes to be good technology. But what India needed was drones with dual purposes, both for surveillance and to serve as platforms for missiles. Now, the Israelis, I don't think were very keen to give that kind of a platform in the beginning, because for a variety of reasons, a lot of Israeli decisions on defense technology transfer requires, I wouldn't say official approval by the US, but it requires a nod by the US that they will not be offended by the transfer. So by the time the Prime Minister's visit happened, those sort of things were sorted out. And now we are looking at the Heron, which is going to be both a drone of defense and a drone of offense. So it will be a dual-use platform, which is good. I mean, which is the way it should be. But more important, remember, Mr. Modi has been keen on getting things made in India. It's part of his Make in India campaign. Now, a lot of the American defense producers, hardware producers, are not very keen on that kind of a technology transfer, on that kind of a collaboration. Now, the Israelis have worked around whatever internal issues they may have had on Make in India by rephrasing it as Make with India. So by rephrasing Make in India into Make with India, they have made it more acceptable for their own constituency, and I guess it is perfectly acceptable for India too. So that is how it has worked.
Yeah. It is more collaborative. I know time is of the essence, guys. Sunanda had one last question, and then we'll wrap up the hangout.
Yeah, my last question was, lot of international press does acknowledge that India is finding its place on the global table finally. The foreign policy of Prime Minister Modi, as you said in your very first comment, has been, it came out of the stupor, literally, after the UPA years. However, there are also nagging reports, and you and I both know how to look at them. But for the benefit of our audience, the worldwide audience, there are still nagging reports which talk about freedom of expression, which talk about India's democracy being, India losing its democratic ideals as far as freedom of expression is concerned. I look at them with the contempt that deserve, because I travel to India so often and I know what is going on. Ordinary people don't really feel any kind of gagging anywhere. However, from the point of view of an expert, I would like you to answer this. Sitting there in India, do you see any of these freedom of expression debates making any sense at all, or is this the delusion of New York Times and Washington Post?
You know it as well as I do. This country is a Tower of Babel.
Yes.
Everybody is talking over here. Everybody is talking whatever he or she wishes over here. And to say that people do not have freedom of expression, or they do not enjoy the right to speak they wish to, is an exaggeration. We have problems. And those problems, some of those problems are of recent vintage. I mean, this whole thing about, if you criticize Islam, or if you are talking about Muslims and Muslim issues, then people look at you differently. If you are being a similar sort of a critical appraisal of Hindus and Hinduism would be treated differently. So all that is now sort of creating a situation where more and more people are questioning the restrictions, real and imagined, which exist on free speech. That is as far as India is concerned. Now, since you mentioned this, I'm really, really intrigued as to why the Washington Post and the New York Times are really so obsessed with A, with India, and B, with Uttar Pradesh in India.
Yeah.
So, for the
because you live in Uttar Pradesh, maybe.
So, there are so many chief ministers in this country.
Yeah.
Many good, many bad, many indifferent. But I have never seen them so obsessed with any single chief minister as they are with the chief minister of UP. Now, having said that, yes, it is a problem. It is a problem because Mr. Modi has always sort of tried to place himself as someone who is a leader of the nation, someone who represents all 125 crore Indians. And this whole slogan of his Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas has sort of become his talisman. And wherever he goes, people remind him of it, either while the host speaks about, sort of raises a toast at an official dinner, that here is the Prime Minister who sort of has worked on or is working on Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. Or newspapers and television shows talk about it, refer to it. So it becomes difficult for him to sort of explain that why, despite so much intent and effort at the level of the Prime Minister, despite that, incidents occur where people are beaten up or lynchings happen. That is really awful. I mean, it's something which India needs to deal with. Needs to deal with it very fast. Absolutely. Because these are not things which you want to talk about when you are on foreign soil. Yeah. You want to talk about things that can be done, things that should be done. Lastly, when you talked about Western or foreign interest in the negatives of India, let me tell you that if the Indian economy grows, if the Indian economy really speeds up and India becomes an economically strong nation, all these negatives will then recede into the background. Nobody talks about human rights in China.
Yeah.
Nobody about China. Nobody talks about why Google and Twitter are not allowed in China. But you try to do that in India. I mean, everybody will talk about it.
Yeah.
So the key to it is economic growth, economic development, and Vikas must get back to being the main agenda of Mr. Modi and his government.
The funny thing is, even Google and Twitter themselves don't talk about why they are not allowed in China. the Twitters, the CEOs and the top officials of Twitter and Google on Twitter, they'll tweet about everything but not about this. And what you said, Kanchan, about the Washington Post and New York Times being very interested in the chief minister of UP, I don't think they were ever interested in any chief minister of UP before Yogi Adityanath. Because I have never seen a single article on Mayawati or Akhilesh Yadav saying this. But Yogi Adityanath ke liye you have profiles written every day.
No, but their last bastion of poverty section for both New York Times and Washington Post was from the Bimaru states. And if you is the only one that is hanging with a thin thread, then their content is lost.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's so true.
Anyways, on this note, it's very, 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 very interesting discussion that we had. On this note, I would like to wrap up this discussion. I know there is a lot more to talk about, but we have run flat out of time on this. On behalf of Mindmakers, I would like to thank Kanchan for joining us on India-Israel. Some fascinating insights, and always a pleasure to hear your views. So thank you so much, Kanchan, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and we look.
Thank you.
And we look forward to doing a lot more interactions with you on this. So thanks a lot. With that, this is Aadit Kapadia, Sunanda, Vashisht, and Pramod Kumar Buravalli signing off. We'll be back with new Mind Debates soon enough. Thank you.